Hello, my name is Mark and welcome to theGunLocker. And this is the HW77K produced by Weihrauch and it's setting the bar. What bar and why do we need one? It's a good question. I've been asked recently by quite a few people, when am I actually going to, release some reviews? And it's something that I wanted to do for some time now. But, that's a big but. If you look online, you'll see that there are hundreds of reviews, The guys that have been at it for decades now, and they are really good at what they do. Don't get me wrong, I mean there's no way that I can compete with them, and I don't want to, in all honesty. And then that kind of leaves me with the thought, so if I'm going to produce a review, how's it going to be any different to what these guys are doing? I've already said I don't want to compete with them. And then, what's going to make it different enough for you to want to actually watch it? And I guess it comes down to the fact that, as you know, the theGunLocker is mainly a classified site, and it's there to help people buy and sell guns. And particularly those that are looking to buy, it would be nice to be able to give them some information that may help them make an informed decision. Help them decide whether they're going to buy that gun or not. So it has a place. There is a reason to put it on the site. But for me to do that, I need to work to some set of standards, a bar. And I was wondering, how am I going to, set these standards, or what am I going to use to set these standards? And then it came to me that, I started shooting back in the 80s, the early 80s, and roughly the time when this was released around about 83, 84. And in fact, the HW77K back then, well, that was my first rifle that I bought, so in one sense, I'm biased because it was my first gun. But I bought it for a reason. I bought it because at the time, there wasn't much in the way of choice. It was mainly, it was all springers, but it was mainly break barrels. And the big name at the time was Webley. When the Weihrauch came on the scene, it really did stand out. It had the fixed barrel, the underlever. The build quality was stunning. The trigger was absolutely brilliant. And it soon kind of took over the airgun scene, and it dominated the 80s and it dominated the 90s, and rightly so. And I thought to myself, well, look, that's a good place to start. And not only that, this gun was first launched in 83, 84, like I've just said, and it's been around for almost 40 years and it's still in production. And Weihrauch aren't stupid, they wouldn't be producing a rifle that wasn't performing as it should be, and it wasn't a good bet. It stood the test of time. That alone has earned it the right to kind of be considered as setting a standard. But then you kind of look more deeply into the gun, how it's been built. Take the barrel for instance. If you speak to Weihrauch and you ask them the question, how is it that your barrel can shoot any pellet, they'll answer, it's because we designed it that way. That's the truth. That's what they did. They weren't pellet fussy. And that's another important factor, because nowadays, you get air rifles coming on the scene, and it doesn't matter whether it's a Springer, a PCP, CO2, whatever. And for the most part, they're all pellet fussy. And as a newbie, you know, you come onto the scene, you're learning how to shoot. You may not have the experience to know the difference between one pellet and another. You know, do you want to spend, what, £100 or £150 on, you know, 10 tins of pellets, all different manufacturers, to find the right one to suit your gun? Because in all honesty, none of the manufacturers say, we've designed our barrel around this pellet. And that's hard, because then that newbie's going to doubt themselves. They'll start shooting and they'll think, why aren't I grouping? Is it me? And as soon as you start questioning yourself, you're knocking your confidence, you're knocking your ability, it becomes a lot harder. And then the sport all of a sudden goes from being something that you enjoy to something that's frustrating to something that you want to give up. And it's a shame. So going back to this bar, I thought to myself, actually, if I produce reviews working to a standard set by the HW77K, I've got a good chance of providing something that you guys will find actually useful in determining whether you're going to buy a gun or not. Now, bear in mind, these standards that I set, they're based on my opinion and that of my team that, you know, they're working behind the scene, and they're based on our experience shooting the gun. So you guys, you may disagree, and that's entirely your privilege. You know, if you want to do so, do so. And if you want to put comments and say as much, fine. What I will ask though is please keep those comments clean, because we are reaching out to a large audience. Those, you know, we're reaching out to minors and we're reaching out to ladies, and I do not want to offend them. And if any of those comments are abusive in any way or include foul language, they will be removed and you may well be blocked. So please keep it clean. But going back to, you know, setting that standard, I thought to myself, okay, fine. So great, HW77K is going to set the standard, it's going to set the bar. Now, what are these standards actually going to be, or how are they going to be presented? And the most obvious thing in my mind is a 5-star system. And I kind of looked at the different areas and I thought, okay, fine, let's review it on aesthetics, on build quality, on ergonomics, handling, safety, shot count, accuracy, and value for money. And then we'll tot up all the scores and we'll give an overall score. And that way, we'll rate the gun. And again, you know, PCP, Springer, gas ram, CO2, whatever, they're all going to go against the same bar. And hopefully, it will allow you guys to make an informed decision as to when you purchase your next gun. Now, I know, speaking to a few of my friends that do have dealerships, and I was talking the idea through with them, you know, I mentioned it to one guy and he said, oh, I shan't use his exact words, but he was saying, blimey, you're going to upset quite a few people, because at the end of the day, they're going up against the 77. And I'm like, yeah, and? He says, well, they're just not going to be able to do it. And I'm like, well, they should. In my mind, if you're about to spend £500, £600 or more on a rifle, just the rifle, you know, and that doesn't include all the add-ons, the diver's bottle if it's a PCP, you know, the little compressor if you're not going to use a diver's bottle or a hand pump, the whip, the quick fill adapters, you know, the scope, the bipods. If you're going to be spending that sort of money, and you know, you're shooting a rifle that actually isn't performing, well, maybe there's a right for them to be worried. You know, maybe these manufacturers should be thinking, actually, what are we doing? And if a £600-700 rifle can't compete with an HW77, and then, let's face it, I mean, I bought this a few weeks ago and it cost me £375 and it's immaculate. Built it in 2018, so it's 4 years old, and there's not a mark on it. It's absolutely stunning. But I'll go more in detail in a little while when I actually do the review. But the fact is, I've got a gun here that straight out of the box can shoot. I don't need a scope, I've got open sight. I will remove the rear sight and I will fit a scope, just because I want to give it the best chance when I do the accuracy test. But I know damn well I can put any pellet in this and I can send it down range, and I'm going to put it in the same place consistently because the gun allows me to do that. And I can do that for £375. Not for 500, 600, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 3,000, and the money keeps going up and up and up and up. And bear in mind, they're all doing the exact same job. They are all sending a pellet downrange to hit a target, and hopefully consistently. And more importantly, if they're shooting game, that pellet goes where it's meant to go. So you dispatch that game quickly, cleanly, and we're not wounding animals. So yeah, I may well upset a few people, and my apologies if I do, but again, my opinions, they're my team's. And you may disagree or you may agree, but I hope it helps. So there we go. HW77K is setting the bar.